What's up, everybody? It's Luke James, not the singer. If you want some promo or your music reviewed, you can hit up Luke at redmattersite.com. That's SITE. And you can also send any questions or topics for the show there. Of course, you can find me and my music reviews as well as the podcast on plenty of platforms. All you got to do is a search for Luke James Reviews or the Luke James Podcast. But as I said in the last episode, I am moving on from SoundCloud. They just charge way too much, especially when you're trying to do a podcast, because they do charge you by how much you're using. So I'm moving on from there, but you can still find this podcast on iTunes and Spotify, where it has been doing all right. So for today's show, what we are going to do is rank Jay-Z's 13 albums. I'm not going to be including any of his EPs, mixtapes, or collaborations, so you won't see Best of Both Worlds, Everything Is Love, or Watch the Throne on here. And keep in mind that this is all opinions-based. So if you disagree and you want to share your list down below, if you're on YouTube in the comments section, by all means make sure you do that. If this podcast episode does well enough, I will be ranking Eminem's albums next, so make sure you share this if you like it and you want to see that, because I put a lot of damn work into this thing, man. It took a lot of effort to listen to 13 albums and basically do mini reviews for each one of them, but here we are, man. This list got flipped around more times than a Cirque du Soleil performer on acid, but I am happy with what we got here, and we're going to jump right into it. Starting things off at number 13, we have the 2006 comeback album Kingdom Come. Honestly, after revisiting this one for the first time in a while, it's not quite as bad as I remember it being, but I would still say it's Jay-Z's worst work by far. We got to keep in mind that this came out after the Black Album. That was supposed to be his last record, and there really was a lot of hype with that one. I'd say that's one of his classics, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And yeah, this one just didn't come close to those standards, so it was kind of like when Jordan came back to the Wizards, you know? He had those flashes of greatness, but he ultimately wasn't the same guy. Or if you want to get nasty with it, it's kind of like comparing Pinky in her early years to Pinky in 2019. If you know, you know. I think Jay's beat selection on this album is questionable and all over the place, including tracks like Anything, 30-Something, and Hollywood, which surprisingly are forgettable despite two of them being credited to Dr. Dre and the Neptunes. But in spite of that, this album still has its highlights, so it's not like it's dumpster juice with fish bones floating in it. I don't mind Show Me What You Got because it's a fun single that I can remember getting hyped to in the club. The great production on Oh My God and Kingdom Come recaptured some of that chemistry with Just Blaze, who also did Show Me What You Got. And Lost One is one of my favorite Jay-Z songs ever because of the somber Dre production and also the personal content about people he lost in his life. I'd also have to say that Minority Report is another standout. You're getting great songwriting here about Hurricane Katrina and its aftermath, but overall this album just came across as a rushed project to me, you know what I mean? I think if you took a bit more time and put a lot more effort into this, it could have been good because there's certainly some things there. But even as Jay-Z's worst album, it's alright. There's not a whole lot to be said about it, but there are certainly other artists out there whose worst albums aren't even listenable. As I mentioned, I will be ranking Eminem's album, so there's a couple of examples in that one. Now coming in at number 12 is 2013's Magna Carta Holy Grail. I remember there being a lot of hype for this album, and it was also a bit gimmicky because it came out with an app, but I also remember not having very strong feelings about it in one way or the other. After revisiting it for this podcast, I immediately got bored of that single Holy Grail. It starts off as this plodding piano ballad with Justin Timberlake singing for over a minute, and the song itself is 6 minutes of Jay mostly speaking on the trappings of fame. This is obviously a reoccurring topic on this project, as much of it centers around Jay-Z's success, his love for expensive shit. You're getting plenty of pop culture references throughout as well, but overall I didn't find his rapping and content to be very engaging on most of this album. Clearly he was going for a bit more of a mature approach here, but a lot of it just feels very forced and unnatural to me. I really just wish he had balanced this one out with some more of that street shit that we've come to love from him, but it kind of seems like he was going for a whole other audience here, or like he didn't know what the audience was in the first damn place. Really a bad swerve, like not getting Persona 5 on Switch, but getting a goddamn Dynasty Warriors Persona game that nobody asked for. Shout out to my nerds. And even after revisiting this album so recently, I still found most of it to be forgettable, even as I'm sitting here recording this. Tom Ford, La Familia, and Crown might have some appeal because of the bass, but that's about it because Jay-Z is on here bullshitting with his bars and flows. Verses and Beaches Better are pointless interludes. Part 2 is your standard R&B lace joint with Beyonce, and Nickels and Dimes sounds like an amateur production with the muffled hook. And that's another thing, man. The beat selection on this, to me, is just as questionable as some of the stuff on Kingdom Come. And that's too bad because it does hold back some of these tracks. I did mention La Familia, which actually has decent content on it as he opens up about his family ties, but that generic trap-style production isn't helping at all, man. I never really liked Jay on that style of beat, but here we are with some of that on this record right here. To be fair though, there are things about this album that I appreciate, like the song Oceans. This one has a stellar performance from Frank Ocean, as well as triumphant horns and clever water references. And even though the Rick Ross verse on Fuck With Me, You Know I Got It isn't his best, I always had a bit of a soft spot for this track, It's just one of those smooth joints with big bass. I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it, but I understand the vibe and bounce that it was trying to bring. I also thought Picasso Baby was a pretty hard track with that beat, and BBC, the song, not the appendage, you sickos, has that party on the beach feel with a star-studded cast. Content-wise though, I think Somewhere in America and Heaven are two of the standouts, because he's on here with poignant bars about racism and high society on the former, and then his musings on religions on the latter. So there are certainly good things to be found here, and I think aesthetically it's more interesting than Kingdom Come, but these bottom two albums are pretty much interchangeable for me. It's kind of like having to choose between a kick or a punch to the face. A bit different, but either way is still not a good thing. At number 11 is the Blueprint 3 from 2009, and this one to me can best be described as Jay-Z light, or if this were a beer, it'd be some non-alcoholic Jigga. It's not near as gritty as his past work, and much of it feels very bright, clean, poppy, and commercialized, especially tracks like Off That, Young Forever, and A Star Is Born. But to be fair, you do get some mainstream singles that are decent here. I didn't absolutely hate Run This Town and Empire State of Mind, but overall Jay sounded a bit uninspired to me on this album, in spite of having this star-studded cast helping him out. I mean, you got Drake, J. Cole, Rihanna, and Alicia Keys on here, as well as some other people, but all of this still was not enough to make me fall in love with this project. Just like Magna Carta Holy Grail, it's missing that rawness, and very clearly he was going in a different direction here. Not to mention this has one of his worst songs he's ever made, Venus vs. Mars, man. You're getting this wonky Timbo beat, a trash hook, and a hit-and-miss wordplay about this battle of sexes type of stuff. Really, it's just not that great, man. There's some lines on here that are kind of clever, but then you got some other ones that he's really forcing, so that track to me is pretty much all around bad. Now, I do think On to the Next One and Reminder are decent bangers. Real As It Gets has a Jeezy feature that fits perfectly, and Already Home with Cudi has great Kanye production. But the track I think of most when it comes to this album has gotta be Death of Autotune. I appreciate when he dropped that because it was such a dusty throwback joint that took aim at the overuse of autotune, but it's also kind of funny because that shit did not die at all, and it is more alive than ever 10 years later in 2019. In fact, when it comes to the mainstream shit, I'd say that's what the vast majority of people are doing, so clearly the message of that track didn't work, but it's still hard. Gotta shout out an honorable mention to So Ambitious. This song has an inspirational message, some bubbly Neptunes production, and a nice hook from Pharrell, so there are a couple of things here that I like, but I don't have much more to say about it. Certainly has enough moments to overtake the last two albums I talked about, but I would still put this as some bottom tier Jay-Z. At number 10 is 1999's Volume 3, The Life and Times of S. Carter, and the placement for this one was kind of tricky. I think the production here is outdated, and then you got these songs on it that are really bad with Things That You Do. This is definitely in the running for one of his worst songs with that wonky Swiss production, as well as S. Carter with that trash-ass hook assisted by Emil. Both of these songs, man, they could just be melted down in a vat of acid and then fired into the sun. But if we did that, the sun would probably send them back and be like, I don't even want this shit. So, not really starting off this number 10 spot in a positive way, but when this album is good, it is damn good. Big Pimpin' with UGK is a straight up classic, so I don't even got to say anything else about it. You got Watch Me with Dr. Dre. This track is so good that it spawned The Watcher on Chronic 2001, as well as The Watcher 2 on Blueprint 2. And even though I didn't like Do It Again when it first came out, it really did grow on me. I just remember thinking that beat from Rockwilder was kind of different. Rockwilder definitely hooked Jay up with a better beat on NYMP, but even still, it worked solid as a banger, and Beanie and Jay were bodying that shit, so it was pretty cool now that I'm looking back at it. Then we have the song Come and Get Me. This one is dope as hell with that ever-evolving beat as Jay is on here daring people to test his gangsta. And DJ Premier laced him with that classic Primo sound on So Ghetto, so there are certainly some nice beats on here. This is actually one of the albums that after revisiting it, it's a little bit better than I remember. I remember thinking this was going to be way at the bottom. I mean, it still isn't high up there, but I thought it would be one of the worst ones in the list. But even still, it's better than those ones that I mentioned already. And we also got to shout out the song Anything. This has always been a personal favorite Jay-Z track for me, but apparently this was only on certain versions of the album. I think maybe it was on the European version or something like that. But one of the things I will say that kind of holds this one back is that even though the flows and charisma are there, there's not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the lyrics and the content, especially when we do compare it to his best albums, which we will get into later. In spite of that, there are still a couple of moments. You got Dope Man, where Jay is on trial and using clever wordplay that revolves around his music hustle being like the dope game. And There's Been a Murder is a clear standout as he raps about the idea of going back to his hustling days as Sean Carter. This album is definitely uneven, but it has a good collection of bangers and plenty of that raw street shit that we want from Jigga, so it still feels like a decent Jay-Z album, you know what I mean? I like it better than the other ones, so this is why it fits here. As for number 9, it's the Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse from 2002, which really just suffers because of the sheer number of tracks. Even Jay-Z, when he was ranking his own albums, admitted that there were too many songs here, but it did get a re-release called Blueprint 2.1, so that kind of, tidied things up a bit. Still though, I think the overstuffed version has plenty of good tracks, there are great beats on here, Jay's rapping is solid, and even though this album couldn't live up to the hype of the first Blueprint, obviously, I don't think this is as bad as some people make it out to be. I've often heard people say that this is actually his worst album, and I don't feel that way. We got Excuse Me Miss, this is a great single with that wavy beat and catchy hook from Pharrell. The Watcher 2, which I just talked about on that last album, that took a great track with Dre and made it even better. And As One is a dope-ass posse cut with a classic Earth, Wind & Fire sample that works even better than you already expect it to. Earth, Wind & Fire, man, they are some legends. Obviously, they've been sample flipped a lot, and I think it worked really well on this song, and you're getting plenty of great bars. Then you got all kinds of stray tracks on here. I'm talking about All Around the World, Poppin' Tags, the You Don't Know remix with M.O.P., Somehow, Some Way, Some People Hate, Meet the Parents, A Ballad for a Fallen Soldier. There are just too many good songs for me to really break them all down here because this is such a long-ass album. It's a double disc, but these are a bunch of tracks on here that I think are really good, You're still going to get some filler on here for sure, but I would still take this album because of the good that's on it. One thing about this project that's impressive is how Jay flexed his versatility, whether he was going in on sample-based stuff, making smooth joints, bangers. That is just always something about Jay-Z that I've always respected. He's one of the few rappers that can really rap with pretty much anybody on any type of beat and not sound out of place. I mean, he got a song on here where he's on some Heavy D production with Lenny Kravitz on it called Guns N' Roses. And even though it's not a personal favorite of mine, I think it works better than you would expect it to. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but, I think this album is a testament to the versatility of Jigga and how he can hold his own on different styles. But I'm not going to get much more into this album. I already said how there's just so many songs it would take forever. But after revisiting this, I think there's a lot of quality to be found here. Even some of the more mediocre tracks are fun for what they are. Songs like Nigga Please, Too Many Hoes, and even Fuck All Night. If someone told me those songs are trash, I wouldn't argue over it, but you're getting some decent beats there. It kind of fits the sound at the time. They're just some bouncy joints. And this album to me is kind of like if you were at a barbecue or a buffet, just loading your plate up with all kinds of different shit. You might not want to eat it all. You might pick at it a little bit later. Maybe someone wants to come over and take something off your plate. There's just so much stuff going on. But hey, man, you can just scrape off the stuff you like, and you're still going to have plenty of good stuff on there. It's a pretty mediocre analogy, but, whatever. We're going to roll with it anyway. And at the number 8 spot is his 2000 release, the Dynasty Roc La Familia. This is probably one of the more controversial spots on this list because after some of the discussions I've had, a lot of people seem to think it's trash. I'm looking at you, Edward Bowser. But I don't agree with that at all, man. One of the knocks against this really is that it's more of a compilation, which I think it originally was supposed to be. But even still, man, I think everybody did their damn thing on here, and as a part of Jay-Z's discography, it's pretty solid. Just the fact that it comes in at number 8 goes to show you how good his discography is, man, because I really like this a lot. I know the singles Change the Game and Give It To Me get a bit of a bad rap, but I don't think they're trash songs. Change the Game is a solid banger that showcases chemistry between Jay Bleek and Siegel, while Give It To Me is just a quintessential Neptunes joint. It really just reminds me of that era of these sounds, The beat is bright, the hook is catchy, and it's a fun song. So, the one single on here I hated though, oh my god, this is one of my least favorite Jay-Z songs ever, is Guilty Until Proven Innocent. This one, the beat just sounded cheap as hell when it dropped, and after coming across it again all this time later, it is even worse. It's kind of like rediscovering old leftovers at the back of your fridge that you knew you were never going to eat in the first place, but there it is, man. You put it back there, you're like, maybe I'll come back to this, I don't know, I might, but you never do. It just sits there, and there's another food analogy for whatever reason. So those tracks I just discussed, those are obviously some of the more hit or miss ones here, but there are a lot of good songs on this still, man. I think that intro is one of the greatest rap intros ever, and of course there's This Can't Be Life, which is one of my favorite Jay-Z songs of all time. I mean, come on, you got Hove, Beans, and Scarface getting introspective over some top-tier Kanye production, so what more could you ask for? Probably more, because people are greedy, but goddamn it, take this shit, because this is a dope song. And since I did bring up some of the features and how this is a bit of a compilation album, I think the guests really were coming through on this. I actually mentioned that at the start, but I'm saying it again just to drill it home. Streets is Talking and Stick to the Script have Hove and Siegel spitting street wisdom over two Just Blaze bangers. 1-900 Hustler has this Bink production and a cool concept where Jay, Beans, and Freeway are acting as hotline operators for the streets. And Get Your Mind Right Mommy has Snoop sounding right at home over this guitar-led production that kinda sounds like something that could have been on Chronic 2001. I definitely fuck with all these tracks, and even Parking Lot Pimpin' works just fine, so I don't think that there are a lot of straight up misses on here. Definitely some tracks that are just kind of decent, or maybe like you might say really good, but yeah, I don't think this is as bad as some people make it out to be. Of course, we also have to shout out Soon You'll Understand. You get this sad production from Just Blaze as Jay is going in about the downfall of a relationship, and Where Have You Been is another gem. Here we have Jay and Beanie getting very deep and emotional as they speak on their absentee fathers. Again, the beat is very somber. You got Siegel on here sounding like he's damn near just going to break down and snap, so there's just this added layer of emotion there that really makes this one stick. So this album is really not that bad, man. Not as bad as people make it out to be, and I think it's pretty solid. So we are going to take a quick break right now before we get to the rest of the list, but stick around and I'll meet you on the other side.
Hey yo, this is Mike Seatown from the Dead End Hip Hop crew, deadendhiphop.com, MikeSeatown.com. You're here listening to the Luke James podcast. Like it, love it, dig it, all that.
All right, everybody, we're back. We're going to jump right into things with my number 7 spot, and there we have 1997's In My Lifetime Volume 1. Now, I just want to get the couple of bad tracks out of the way here because I Know What Girls Like is clearly one of the worst Jay-Z songs ever. I just always thought the beat was clunky and the hook on it was trash. And we also have the song Sunshine, which I'm kind of on the fence about, you know? There's this nostalgic value that I have with it because I remember hearing it at high school dances, so there's all these memories. But I never really loved this beat. I thought the Babyface hook seemed a bit out of place, and the bars here aren't really anything extraordinary, especially compared to what we know Jay-Z can do. So I think these two tracks are some of the worst in his entire catalog, but there's also lots of great tracks on this album as well. I know people are split on The City Is Mine, especially the critics who said it was too glossy and mainstream, but I always liked the Glenn Frey interpolation from Blackstreet, and I am a sucker for 80s music and saxophone, so I just like the overall sound of this track, you know? Kind of feels like you're just riding around under city lights or something like that. Really has a cool feel to it. Then we also have Who You With 2 and Imaginary Player. I'm also a sucker for how Jay-Z sounds on clean-ass piano keys, and both of these tracks deliver that. And of course, I gotta speak on some of the content on this album, because there are some really great moments here. On Streets Is Watching, we get an iconic beat from Ski Beats, as Jay is rapping about what it's like to be a street dude who made it out, and yet he still has to watch his back for haters, because in his own words, look, if I shoot you, I'm brainless, but if you shoot me, then you're famous, what's a nigga to do? I just always thought that line was as cold as ice, because to me it really sums up the track, you know what I'm saying? Jay did a lot of dirt back in the day, but now he's out of that and he's in the rap game, but he knows that his past could come back and haunt him. So there is a little bit of content on this one, not as deep as some of his best stuff. I feel like I said that a couple of times, but that's why his best stuff is at the top of the list. And yeah, I just had to mention that there. Then we get a great collaboration with Too Short called Real Niggas, where they're sharing their hustle story from the dope game to the rap game. And this actually came out at the perfect time because it was after the death of Pac and Biggie. There was kind of this underlying theme here of the East Coast and West Coast working together, so I like that whole idea of the track as well as how this one sounds. A little bit of a West Coast flavor to it a little bit, maybe some Bay Area shit going on, and I also think it flows perfectly into the next song, Rap Game/Crack Game. This is just a track where Jay is drawing parallels between the rap game and slang and that work. So, you know, you're getting a lot of the very typical content that Jay-Z would give you, but he just executes it better on certain projects than on other ones. That said, there are plenty of moments on here where Jay's pen game is pretty sharp, including Friend or Foe 98, where he follows up the story he began on Reasonable Doubt, and of course you have You Must Love Me, which is one of his most personal tracks, because what he's doing on here is showing love to his family who has always been there for him, despite some of the crazy shit that he's done, man, including shooting his own brother. You think that would be a deal breaker for most people, but in this instance it's not, and I just thought this was a cool idea for a track to obviously show love to the people who helped make him who he is. Of course, we also have Where I'm From, and to this day, this is one of my personal favorite hip-hop songs, man. That beat is harder than a bag of rusty nails being smacked upside your head, and Jay's bars are so vivid as he's rapping about the projects that he grew up in, just painting pictures and delivering excellent street narrative. So this song and this album is pretty dope to me, man. It is kind of in the middle spot here. I wouldn't say it's like a top-tier Jay record, but it's certainly better than some of the other projects in his catalog, so I do have an appreciation for it. And coming in at the number 6 spot is one album that really just means a lot to me because I remember listening to this one a lot. It just came out back in the day when I was in my teens and I enjoyed a lot of the tracks. I'm talking about Volume 2 Hard Knock Life, which includes one of Jay's most famous songs called Hard Knock Life. This song is a classic with that Annie sample and bass that's thicker than Leighton Benton, and Jay floated on this effortlessly as he stayed in his lane of blending street narrative with his come-up story. I especially like those flows on that short third verse, man. Just a couple of extra bars he put on the end there. And I think whether you like the song or not, you cannot deny that it is an iconic hip-hop song. Everybody knows Hard Knock Life. Even people who aren't into rap probably know this song and recognize that beat. Now, there are also some great concept tracks and interesting content on this album that work really well too, including the song A Week Ago, which has Jay-Z and Too Short painting pictures of how partnerships in the crime world can turn sour, especially when snitching is involved. Just that whole idea of how things can drastically change within a week. We're also getting Coming of Age to Sequel. This is a track where Jay plays a part of an OG while Memphis Bleek is the young dude who's trying to come up in the streets. And I thought this was a very cool idea because a lot of what's going on here is almost like a mind battle between the two. You can feel the tension being built up as these two characters are basically trying to read each other's minds and motives. So it was just a very cool concept and overall it just sounds good as well. Of course, we got to shout out the Stevie J produced banger Ride or Die. And this also has some light subliminals at Mace in that first verse that I didn't even realize until I was doing some research for this podcast. So that was actually kind of a cool discovery for me. Apparently Mace was on another track saying something about Platinum Disc, Platinum Dad, and he was aiming it at Jay-Z and The Roc. So Jay was on here just talking shit to him and saying he's the weakest nigga in his crew, talking about how he's talking greasy on R&B records. There's some other lines in there you can pick up on. So yeah, there you go. There's a little bit of an Easter egg for you if you didn't know that. Now, obviously, another thing I got to talk about is how this album is one of Jay's most successful projects in the mainstream, and it's really no surprise when you see the collection of great bangers and just all-out fun songs. There are a lot of tracks on here that don't get too deep, and you guys know content is something I usually look for, but the production is just so damn good, and Jay's flows and shit-talking are in top form. A perfect example of this is on It's Alright, where he's working some of his most cocky and confident flows. I just always like the way he approached this Talking Heads sample, especially on that first verse. And Memphis Bleek did his thing on this song too. I know his solo career never got as big as it was expected to be, but he always played his part on some of these earlier Jay-Z albums. Keeping with the themes of more mainstream style tracks, you got Nigga What, Nigga Who, which was produced by Timbo, and it had Jay and Jazzo ripping some fast flows with a mill on the hook. This one isn't really a personal favorite, but it's kind of a fun track, and it really fits the time that it came out in, so that sound was happening a lot in that era, and I think maybe it might sound a bit outdated, but it's still kind of cool. We got Money Ain't a Thing. This is a bouncy collab with Jermaine Dupri dropping the beat and the verse. Always like the bass line on this one, and it's just a very fun track. And of course, we got the classic song Money Cash Hoes. Any gamer out there has gotta appreciate the Golden Axe sample on this from Swizz, and Jay has quotables all over this damn song. Like when he spits, "It's like New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the buildings." This is a reference for that video where Snoop was kicking over all the buildings in New York. And I also like how Jay-Z acknowledges the ridiculousness of this song title and the hook when he raps that, "I know they gonna criticize the hook on this song, like I give a fuck, I'm just a crook on this song." He's just speaking to the critics who are gonna say, what is this bullshit that you're rapping about, man? There's nothing on here, money and cash, ain't that the same thing? And you rapping about hoes? And Jay's like, yeah, exactly, that's the whole point, I don't give a fuck. So, I thought it was kind of cool that he called that out. Of course, we got DMX snapping on this song as well, like the rabid dog he was back in the 90s. And speaking of dogs, I gotta talk about Reservoir Dogs, where we get a good old-fashioned posse cut with The Lox, Beanie Siegel, and Sauce Money. The blaxploitation production on this track is just dope as hell, and I miss when posse cuts were like this, back when MCs were trying to come for each other's throats, you know what I'm saying? Like, they might have been all on the same track, they might have been buddy-buddy, but everybody was really trying to kill it and stick out. It doesn't really seem like that as much these days, but Reservoir Dogs really shows you what I'm talking about. But hey man, maybe I'm just showing my age here, and you can file my complaints under some shit that old men say, but as I said, man, this album is a personal favorite of mine. That's why I had a little bit more to say about it than some of the other projects. I just remember a lot about this one. and it's one of the albums that I still come back to 20 years later, and I'm sure I probably always will. At number 5 is 2007's American Gangster, and to be honest with you, back when this came out, I remember I wasn't in love with it, but it also dropped at a time where I wasn't really sitting with projects and giving it a proper listen. You know what I mean? I was younger, I was out there fucking around, partying and bullshitting a lot. But now that I'm someone who really sits with albums and reviews them, and I got the chance to sit with this one, I totally understand why this is considered some of his best work. And look, now I got it in my top 5, man. If I had been going off the dome, this probably would have been more of a middling album, but as of now, I certainly think it's one of his best projects. We got that single, Rock Boys. This has always been very fun and triumphant, just a celebratory banger that had damn near everybody in the video. And even the other single, I Know, was really cool. This was one of those quintessential smooth joints with Pharrell on the beat and the hook, and there's also a bit of a clever concept here too. It revolves around addiction, love, and the high life. So even though, like I said, I wasn't too familiar with this album because I didn't listen to it a lot back in the day, I did know those singles, which always kind of stuck with me. And after listening through this album again as I was working on this podcast, it kind of reminds me of like Reasonable Doubt mixed with The Blueprint. You got that gangsta hustler story coming through like Jay was doing on Reasonable Doubt, and then the sample-based production is very similar to that, as well as The Blueprint. So that might sound like a bit of a weird thing to say comparing all of these albums, but it really was like a perfect blend to me, and now it's one of my favorite Jay-Z albums, man. Look at that. So for a couple of examples of what I'm talking about, just with the content and the production, we get the song Pray, where Jay is getting vivid with street stories while tying in autobiographical elements. American Gangster has that quintessential hard-ass production from Just Blaze. And American Dreamin' goes further into this, as he speaks on getting into the dope game as someone who was chasing the American dream in his own way. There's a really great Marvin Gaye sample on there. We get another blaxploitation vibe. I know I said that word just describing a song. I think it was Reservoir Dogs, but it also works here with the song Sweet. This also fits with the hustle gangsta narrative of the album. So sonically, there really weren't a lot of missteps here. I like the sound, and I also like the stuff that he's rapping about. If I had to pick a least favorite track, though, I gotta go with Hello Brooklyn 2.0. This is one of those songs, back when I first heard this album, I was like, fuck this, man, I don't even want to come back and listen to this, which obviously was misguided, because this song really sounds different from a lot of the stuff on here, but the reason I didn't like it is because of the production. It's mostly just a simple, bassy loop. It's kind of boring to me, so in spite of the strong performances from Jay and Lil Wayne, that's my least favorite track, and I just think it felt out of place in the track listing. One of my personal favorites, though, has got to be Ignorant Shit, and fun fact, you can hear the same beat/sample on Skilo's song Superman, and I do mean Skilo. A lot of you know him for making that song I Wish, which was damn near a meme track, but he gave us a great debut album, so check it out if you never did, because you might be surprised. But coming back to Ignorant Shit, what I really like about this is how Jay is embracing the ignorant shit, while also speaking on how hip-hop gets demonized, while movies and celebrities out there who promote the same ignorant shit don't get near as much flack. Thought that was just a very cool concept. You're getting a great effort from Beanie Siegel on here. And on the topic of features, of course we got to shout out Nas for coming through on Success. This one has a dope-ass organ-led production on it, and they're just rapping about the ups and downs of fame and success, something that these two icons and legends can certainly rap about, so it was cool to see them come together, as they have on other tracks. Obviously they had that beef back in the day, but since then, they did a lot of tracks together. Not really a lot, but anytime they did come together, it was always interesting, and this was another moment. So, yeah, this is definitely one of the best albums, and out of everything I reviewed here or re-listened to, it was the one that moved the most up the list. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it goes to show you, man, sometimes you don't really remember how you feel exactly about a project, or how you remember it might be wrong. Then you listen to it again, and your opinions change, man. That's just how it goes. Now we've come to the number 4 spot, and fittingly, it is his most recent album, 2017's 444. When this dropped, I was just nervous as hell because anytime an older rapper drops something new, I get worried that they're going to fall off, but this one far exceeded my expectations. The more traditional, sample-based production from No ID is both beautiful and hard-hitting, and Jay delivered some of his most personal and thought-provoking content on this one, man. He really went deeper than I think any of us could have imagined, so that's something that I really liked about this project. He opened up about his biggest flaws and mistakes in life, as well as the idea of killing off his ego on the song Kill Jay-Z. He penned an open letter to his absentee father on Adness, and on the title track, he got incredibly vivid about how he and Beyonce's relationship almost fell apart because all the bullshit he was out here doing. Really just one of the most honest tracks in his entire catalog, and this vulnerability throughout the album made me respect him more as an artist and as a man. Not to say that erases all the bad shit he did, I'm not saying all that, but I think it's very admirable how he just put it all out there and attacked it and came for it, rather than just not speaking on it at all. I think sometimes that's where the best music comes from. So This was just overly impressive to me because this is a man who's been rapping since the early 90s. He's already hit us with classics, and yet with this album, he shows us that he still has plenty of gas in the tank. Even the flows and schemes on here are pretty damn good. And I know in my review I had Smile as my least favorite track just because I had to pick something. I think I had even said one point that the flows were kind of different, so I didn't like them or something like that. But I don't know what the hell I was on, because after re-listening to this now, he's snapping on that. It's a great track. It would probably still be my least favorite just because I love all these other ones better. But, least favorite doesn't mean bad, man. That's still a good track, and some of the flows on there are crazy. So I do appreciate that. He's certainly showing the more mature side of Jay-Z on here, or Sean Carter, but what I like is how he also still gives us some of that street shit. I was talking about with Magna Carta Holy Grail how the street shit was kind of subdued. He was more going with some RC shit, expensive, boastful shit, and what I already talked about that one. But on here, he still hits us with some gangster shit, and I fuck with that 100%. On Bam, we're getting that classic Sister Nancy flip and a great feature from Damian Marley as Jay gets back on his Hove shit, rapping about whipping pots and pulling out straps. Just a really hard-hitting track with a bit of a reggae feel to it. And Caught Their Eyes is one of the most clever songs on the album. Most of the bars here, they involve references to eyes and sight, or in other words, just being aware and able to read people and situations for what's really going on, which is obviously a very important ability that Jay-Z has honed from his years in the streets as well as in the rap game. There are also clear themes of black empowerment and Jay trying to uplift the community on this album, so that helped add another layer to the content on an album that already had a lot going on. I remember back when I was reviewing it, I was listening, reading along with the lyric sheet, taking my notes, and it was just like, God damn it, there's way too much to decipher here. I could have done like an hour on this one album. I just felt like pretty much every line he wasn't wasting. He really had a lot to say, so I do appreciate that. One particularly cool idea comes on Moonlight, where he's referencing the La La Land / Moonlight mix-up at the Oscars, and here he's speaking on the state of hip-hop and how artists just gotta do better, man. Stop showing off the fake guns, stop telling on yourselves and signing shitty deals, really just going into some stuff that I think younger artists could learn from, and he's doing this over a really dope Fuji sample. So that was a track I enjoyed. Then we get Family Feud, where he's rapping about how great his life is with his wife and kids, but also speaking on the divide between the new school and the old school. Because the idea of this track is how everyone loses when the family feuds. Just some really cool concepts and ideas on here. Plenty of fun references. I just cannot hate on this album too much at all, man. That's why I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. And I do think in time, this will be considered a classic. I truly believe that. You can't just say an album's classic, really, when not enough time has gone by. But just when you look at Jay's journey as an MC, you want to talk about consistency and longevity. To drop such a poignant and great album this far into his career, it is damn impressive, man. Especially, we can look at the song The Story of OJ. That's another song that I think will go down as some of Jay-Z's best work. You got that classic Nina Simone sample on there, and just the whole idea he's rapping about how no matter what you do, how far you think you're going to make it, you're still going to be another nigga to a lot of people out there who have those racist views, obviously, and just the way they view you. So, lots of great content on here, really stepped it up, and that is impressive for someone so far into their career to be doing that. But we are going to take a break now because we got a little bit left to do, man. When we come back, we are going to get into the top 3, but we're going to stop right here, and then we'll get right back to the top 3.
Hey there, folks. This is Mark, the host of Spectrum Pulse, where I talk about music, movies, art, and culture on YouTube, and you're listening to the Luke James Podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now into the final stretch where I'm going to run down my top 3, starting with the number 3 spot, 2003's The Black Album. This one has always been a personal favorite of mine because I can remember getting it for Christmas the year it came out, and it was billed as Jay-Z's last album ever, so obviously there was some extra hype added in around that one. Now, just like with most of his albums, this had a couple of pretty standard bangers on it. You got Change Clothes, this is the usual bouncy Neptunes joint, and of course Brush Your Shoulders Off, which is a dirty banger from Timbaland. And while these were both the more mainstream aimed tracks on the album, I actually think they work just fine as singles, you know? Sometimes those singles can be hit and miss, but I think these ones actually came through pretty well. They were both catchy, and Brush Your Shoulders Off in particular became a bit of a meme, not only with that saying of brushing your shoulders off, but also that actual act of brushing your shoulders off. It kind of became a little bit of a dance I remember back in the day, so that track I kind of liked better than Change Clothes, although that was fun as well. Now, I did mention that Change Clothes was produced by the Neptunes, and they came through with another joint called Allure. This one, you're getting more of that smooth and hazy sound that they're known for. You know how the Neptunes do it. Sometimes they come through with those heavy bangers, and other times they're a little bit more vibey with it. And Jay was on here opening up about the allure of the fast life and just how it can be really hard to get out of it. So, just like with all of his projects, you are getting some great storytelling, street narrative, and wisdom from Hove, and that was one of the tracks that has always stood out to me. Of course, December 4th, this one has some of the most epic Just Blaze production ever, as Jay is recounting his life story from birth and through his later years in the dope game. And we gotta point out that Just Blaze also comes through on what might be the hardest interlude of all time on Public Service Announcement. Jay was snapping on there, and there are just so many good songs on this album, man. I don't even think there's one song in here I would say that I actually hate. Certainly, I like some of them better than other ones, but even still, just running down this track list, you're going to get a lot of greatness here. We can also bring up What More Can I Say? And what I like so much about this is how it was really the quintessential track from this album. And what I mean by that is, where this was supposed to be Jay-Z's last album, he's on this song asking you, what more can he say? He's been there, he's done that, he's said it all. You know everything that you're going to get from Jay-Z up until that point. So I thought that was a cool way of him being true to himself and just making a great track. It really felt like this epic finale. So that was one of the songs that always stuck out to me. And that Gladiator sample at the start of the track really just drives it all home, where we're hearing Russell Crowe asking, are you not entertained? That's just pretty much how Jay-Z feels, because up until this point, he had been giving you so much music. It's actually kind of crazy to think now that this album was 16 years ago, man. Doesn't seem that long ago, but here we are in 2019. And you know what? One of the things that still impresses me to this day about this album is just how he worked with so many great producers. He really went through and got pretty much everyone who was popping at the time and got them to be a part of this album. Well, maybe not everybody, but I mean, you look at the names on here and it's just very impressive. I know Justify My Thug is often looked at as one of the worst tracks, but as a DJ Quick supporter, I definitely fuck with that one. I just love that heavy bass line, and the little Madonna interpolation on the hook was a cool choice. We also got Ninth Wonder coming through on Threat. This is where Jay is working some of his best flows and schemes on the album, as he's just talking greasy and sending out warnings, man. Love that track. Cedric the Entertainer is on there coming through with some jokes as well. Just a really great moment on this album. And of course, we got to talk about how he got a beat from Eminem on Moment of Clarity. This is probably my least favorite beat on the album because I've always found most of M's beats to sound a little bit chintzy, especially back during that time period. But it's still such a great track because lyrically he is going all the way in on here. He's really just touching on what it was like for him to forgive his absentee father. He just had to learn how to do that basically. And he also criticizes the music industry, who seems to criticize artists no matter what it is they do. He's speaking on that struggle where artists find themselves having to choose between the more artistic route or just dumbing it down for dollars, as he says. This is actually the track where he famously spit these bars: truthfully, I want to rhyme like common sense, but I did 5 mil, I ain't been rhyming like common sense. And that wasn't a diss to Common, that was just speaking on how that more lyrical, conscious hip-hop style wasn't really making much money then, even now it's still not, compared to when you actually dumb it down and just give people bangers and silly shit like that. So that's nothing new in hip-hop, that's always been around, and he was speaking on that here. So thought that was a great track. Other than the beat I didn't really care for, but the hook on this is cool too because he actually references all of his albums on it. And of course, we gotta show love to 99 Problems. This track I could definitely file under as one of my favorite Jay-Z songs. I love that Rick Rubin production. You're getting these gigantic drums, man. They just hit you in the chest. There's this little bit of an 80s hip-hop sound here. And Jay was snapping all over this damn song, man. I especially always like that second verse where he's telling the story of getting pulled over in 94, and he had that dope in the trunk. All-out great track, great album. And of course, what is a Jay album back in the early 2000s without some of that Kanye production? He brought a little bit of a gospel feel with the Lucifer sample on Lucifer. This is another track where he's really showcasing his pure rap ability. And he laced Jay with another beat on one of the album's standout cuts. Of course, I'm talking about Encore. The horns and twinkling keys on this just sound so natural and organic. And just like What More Can I Say, this was the perfect track for what it was supposed to be because it kind of ties into the whole idea of Jay-Z's curtain call. He's basically telling people on this track to beg if they want for more, which unfortunately did result in the album Kingdom Come, but, you know, anyway, it doesn't matter. This is still a great album, and I would say it's one of Jay-Z's classics. I like pretty much every song on here. There are those couple of spots where I could nitpick it, but for the most part, this really did live up to the expectations of what we thought was going to be his last album, man. He really came through, and I think it's some of his best work. So moving on to number 2, we have the classic debut that started it all, 1996's Reasonable Doubt. The production on this is just fantastic because it's mostly very jazzy with lots of soulful drums, bass, and piano keys, and I think the song Feelin' It is a perfect example of that. This one just feels like you're enjoying a warm breeze on the beach while sipping champagne, and Jay's flows and lyricism are top-notch all over this song, as well as the album. You want some more bars? You can look at 22 Twos, where he's reworking various renditions of the word two, just a very clever concept on that one. And on Friend or Foe, he's playing the part of a drug kingpin who's kicking a young upstart out of his territory. That was just such a cool idea, the concept on that track, and the impact that this project has had on the game is still present today, man. Plenty of these beats and bars have been sampled and reworked over the years. We're talking about this dropped in 96, and even now we're seeing some of these beats being reused, especially on that last Meek Mill album, we heard that popping up. And on this album, Jay was just giving us the perfect depiction of a hustler's lifestyle, you know, trying to get that money, stay alive, and eventually find a way out. You get tracks like Can't Knock the Hustle and Politics as Usual, where as the title suggests, Jay is on his braggy shit, just rapping about the hustle and politics of the game. And it did kind of make me laugh as I was re-listening to this album because on Politics as Usual, he's bragging about having VCRs in his car. That just goes to show you how long ago this was, but even still, the music really holds up. It's just funny when you listen to old school hip-hop and you do hear these old references that kind of remind you of those times. Now, he does also get into the deeper, uglier side of things as well on this project, and that's something that does help add a lot of balance to it. It's not like he's just being flossy and glossy on this thing. You'll hear some of this on The Evils, which focuses on the danger and evil of the hustler's lifestyle, and this also has one of my favorite Jay-Z bars of all time when he spits. 9 to 5 is how you survive, I ain't trying to survive, I'm trying to live it to the limit and love it a lot. That to me is just an iconic line. Of course, me just saying it is butchering it because he flows it so much better, but I've always liked that. I remember it popped up actually on one of Apathy's songs. I think it might have been called 9 to 5, so that was a pretty cool flip on that one. But lots of great tracks here. We can also speak on the song Regrets. This one gets into Jay speaking on the pain and suffering he's felt in his life over a very mellow backdrop. So as much as this does deal with the hustler's lifestyle, you are getting all those different sides of it. You're getting those joints where he's braggy, he's feeling it, he's enjoying things, everything's going good. Then you get these tracks where he's speaking on how shit doesn't really work out sometimes. This song Regrets is showing you that vulnerability that even the hardest of hustlers have. So this is really cool, man. I think this album will withstand the test of time pretty much forever, man. This is the pure definition of a classic, and even the supporting cast on this album did their damn thing too. You got the usual suspects, of course, Jazzo, Sauce Money, and even a young Memphis Bleak and Foxy Brown delivering solid verses. And of course, we get that classic track with Biggie called Brooklyn's Finest. This is another one where they're both going back and forth with supreme bars over some of that more piano-led production. So I might not have broken this one down quite as much as some of the other albums, but I really love this one. I think I've made my point very clear that this is a classic and just the different angles and content he was bringing here, so it deserves to be at the number 2 spot. And I'm sure if you did a list of all-time great albums, not just Jay-Z, this would be on there somewhere for sure. And lastly, coming in at the number 1 spot has got to be his 2001 album, The Blueprint. It's actually kind of funny to me because when this dropped, I didn't like it at all. I was just more into the southern scene at the time. But when my good friend Mike lent it to me, I really quickly came to realize how great it is, man. What always fascinated me about this album, and I actually talked about it in the classic review I did for this project on the channel, what I always liked about it is how this dropped in the bling era. A lot of that big bass, synthy, dirty south shit was popping at the time, but then this came through with that fresh, soulful sample-based sound, most of which came from Kanye, Just Blaze, and Bink. That's not to say Jay was the only one or the first one to do these type of sounds, obviously, because this was, this sound had been quite popular for a while, especially in the 90s, but he really did change the game with this project, and the production on here is incredible, man. Just Blaze's You Don't Know will always be a favorite of mine because of how hard and triumphant it is, and of course those horns and bongos from Bink on All I Need are classic, just 2 of many great beats on this album. But not only were the beats great on here, Jay's flows on these tracks and throughout the album are as crisp as ever, man. He's really coming through with that usual street narrative, while also speaking on where he was at in his career. On Never Change, he breaks down his hustling past and shows love to the people who were there with him as he went through it all. And on Heart of the City, he speaks on how once you make it, that love seems to go away. He actually drills his point home at the start of each verse by speaking on the collapse of certain groups and celebrities. And I gotta mention that the beats on these 2 tracks are some of the best soulful sample flips I've ever heard in my life. When people talk about the old Kanye, it's beats like this that come to mind for me. Of course, there's also Girls, Girls, Girls. This is a track where Jay is running down his various women in humorous stereotypical style over some nice string sample production. We got Song Cry, where he's opening up wide about the pain of a relationship ending. This track just really has a very epic sound to it as far as that romantic feel goes. You know what I mean? You hear this track, and you already know what it's going to be about before he starts rapping. It just came together really well. And of course, we got the takeover, man. This is where he took his shots at Nas and Mobb Deep, and he even sent out half a bar at some of the other haters out there, and he was doing it over this classic Doors sample. By the way, it's better than Ether, but that's a topic for a whole other day. Get mad if you want. I don't care. But one thing with this album is that when you go back and listen to it, it really does take you back to a certain time in hip-hop. I think that's something that also makes an album a classic, you know? You listen to this, you hear some of those references, you hear some of the names that are being dropped, some of the stuff that he's talking about. There's just a lot of history to be found on this damn thing, man. Not to mention that it also helped propel Kanye West's career, and we see how topsy-turvy that shit has been. Not, money-wise, obviously he's still doing good, but just his trajectory as a person, people loving him and hating him and shit that's gone on, it has changed a lot since this album dropped back in 2001. So it's pretty interesting to listen to this album and just get these ideas and thoughts as I was revisiting it. And really, the only track that feels out of place to me on here is probably Jigga That Nigga. This is one of those bouncy and glitzy joints from the Trackmasters, but even Jay himself said he put it on there just to mix things up a bit, you know what I mean? He wanted to have a banger on there and just switch the tone up, so I do get it. But other than that, I don't have too many complaints here. I don't even hate that song. I would say it's my least favorite, but I get it for what it is. Just, an early 2000s banger, so whatever. He just had to throw that on there. One track that a lot of people talked about with this album, and to this day they still talk about it, has got to be Renegade with Eminem. Now this does have some Eminem production on it, but I think it's one of his better beats, especially compared to some of the beats he was putting on his solo albums, but that's a topic for when I run his reviews down. And despite what a lot of people say about this one, I think Jay's bars on this track are right up there with Eminem's. I know Eminem snapped, but people make it sound like Jay just got absolutely washed on here and was terrible. I think if it had been pretty much anyone else, Jay would have destroyed it. Like, he would have been the one who came out on top. I would give Eminem the edge by a little bit, but Jay is right there, man. People talk about it like there's this wide gap on this song, but I don't think there is at all. They both brought crazy flows and schemes, and the way they responded to their critics was so blunt and honest that it was hard to disagree with their points or even consider them whiners, you know what I mean? A lot of rappers today love to complain about critics, maybe just with a short bar, or they'll just complain about something very surface level, but they went really deep on this one, man. Eminem was talking to all the people who were critiquing him for, people thought that he was responsible for all the ills and evils in the world, especially religious groups and all this. He really came for them. Jay was speaking to the people who just sort of gloss over his lyricism and think he's just spitting bullshit all the time. Just a damn good track to me, man. I really love this song. Going back and listening to it, this is just hip-hop at its best, in my opinion. Both of these guys put on a masterclass when it comes to rhyming. The beat, not amazing, but it's still good for what it is. Like I said, it's one of Eminem's better productions, so that's a great track on a great album, man. There are just so many of them. Even The Ruler's Back. That just set the tone for the album with that victorious feel, the production, Jay letting you know that he's back and he's got this fresh sound now. And even though people are kind of split on the single Izzo, I love that song, man. It's just so fun, has a very bright feel to it. It's a feel-good track with that classic Jackson 5 sample, and you got plenty of quotables on that. I mean, who wasn't saying, "For shizzle, my nizzle used to dribble down in VA"? Maybe not the whole thing, but people were saying "for shizzle, my nizzle." Of course, Snoop started that, and he was saying all those things. But just, I don't know, I always liked that track, and I still do today, man. This, to me, 5 out of 5. Love this album. It's my number one Jay-Z album. Actually, my favorite album of all time right now, and it's interesting how it went from being an album that I didn't like at all to being my favorite. So that's that, man. That is my list. I'm not going to go with a big outro here, but if you enjoyed this, let me know. Pass it on. Share it around, because out of everything I've ever done on this channel, this really took the most work because I had to listen to 13 projects. I did mini reviews for this. I'm sure I made some sort of mistake in here somewhere because it's a hard thing to do, even with some notes, just to talk by yourself for this damn long. I'm probably going to have to bring someone on for that Eminem list. We might do that just to freshen things up a bit. But I put a lot of work into this. I hope you enjoy it. I'm still learning the ins and outs of podcasting just as far as editing and making things sound good. So it is what it is. Hopefully this was good enough to listen to at least to the end. So if you made it this far, then I know I did my job, because it's not easy to listen to some fool ramble for like an hour or however long this ends up being. So thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the podcast. Share it. Pass it on. We got more in the works. And like I said, if this does well, I'll do Eminem next. And then maybe I'll do a poll and we'll go from there. So Thank you for listening once more, and you won't see me next time, but you will hear me. Peace.